The rain drizzled over the small town of Maple Creek, a place where nothing ever changed. The same quiet streets, the same worn-out cafe at the corner, the same faces that had known each other for decades. And in the middle of that stillness stood Emily Carter, a young woman whose eyes carried something different, a quiet hunger that didn't belong in a town so small. From the time she was a child, Emily had admired her father's medals, 2 bronze stars and a Purple Heart, displayed proudly in a wooden frame above their living room mantel. Her father, Sergeant Daniel Carter, had served in the U.S. Army for 22 years. He never boasted about his service, but when he spoke, his voice carried the kind of gravity that only men who had seen war could possess. She used to sit beside him on quiet evenings, listening to his stories, not the ones about blood or battles, but the ones about loyalty, courage, and brotherhood. Courage, he would say, staring at the fire, isn't about being fearless. It's about standing when fear tells you to sit down. Those words stuck to her heart like a tattoo. Years later, after high school, while her friends chased college scholarships, fashion jobs, and city lights, Emily found herself drifting. She worked part-time at a diner, served coffee to people she'd known since kindergarten, and wondered if this was all her life would be. Until one morning, she walked past the local recruitment office, a small brick building with the American flag fluttering outside. The poster in the window read, "Be all you can be. U.S. Army needs you." She stopped. Her reflection stared back from the glass, tired eyes, apron still dusted with flour, hair tied back messily. Behind that reflection, she imagined her father's medals shining like a silent challenge. That evening, she made her decision. When she told her family at dinner, the fork nearly dropped from her mother's hand. "You want to join the Army?" her mother asked, disbelief laced in her tone. Emily nodded. "Yes, Mom, I'm serious." Her father's face didn't change much. He looked at her for a long moment, then simply said, "It's not an easy road, Em. It'll break you before it builds you." "I know," she replied quietly, "but I want to do it." The next morning, word spread through Maple Creek faster than gossip ever should. At the grocery store, Mrs. Hall, their neighbor, asked in a half-laugh, "Emily Carter's joining the Army?" "Really?" At the diner, old friends smirked, whispering behind their coffee cups. "She won't last a week," someone said. "She's too quiet," said another. "She'll be back before Thanksgiving." But Emily didn't flinch. She'd expected the doubt. She'd heard those same whispers all her life. Too soft, too polite, too delicate. What they didn't understand was that quiet didn't mean weak. The following week, she stood in front of the recruiter's desk, pen in hand, signing the enlistment papers. As she wrote her name, her hand trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of the moment. When the day finally came, her father drove her to the bus station. The sky was painted in hues of orange and gold, the kind of dawn that felt like a beginning. They didn't talk much on the ride. The silence between them was comfortable, a kind of silence that spoke volumes. As the bus came into view, Emily looked at her father. "Are you proud of me?" she asked softly. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he placed his hand on her shoulder, firm and steady. He said, his voice low and deliberate. "I was proud of you long before you put on any uniform. But if you're really doing this, do it all the way. No half measures." "I will," she promised. When the bus doors opened, she hugged him tightly. For the first time in years, he hugged her back with both arms, whispering, "Remember, courage isn't loud." "I know," she said, her voice cracking. "It's what you do when no one's watching." He smiled, the corner of his eyes creasing with pride. "That's my girl." The engine roared to life. Emily climbed aboard, found a seat near the window, and waved as the small town began to fade behind her. The other passengers, new recruits, chatted excitedly, some nervous, some cocky. Emily stayed silent, headphones in, staring out at the endless highway. As miles rolled by, she thought of the life she was leaving, the diner, the dusty roads, the people who never believed in her. Each mile felt like shedding a layer of doubt. After hours of driving, the bus finally slowed, turning onto a road lined with barbed fences and camouflage signs. "Welcome to Fort Jackson." Her heartbeat quickened. The doors opened, and a storm of voices thundered in. Drill sergeants barked commands with military precision. "Move, move, move," one shouted as recruits scrambled off the bus. Emily stumbled out, duffel bag slung over her shoulder. The humid air hit her like a wall. Around her, dozens of recruits, men taller, louder, stronger, filled the parade ground. Some looked determined, others terrified. A deep voice barked from behind her. "You, Carter. You think this is summer camp?" She spun around to see a broad-shouldered man with dark sunglasses and a buzz cut. His name tag read Reeves. "No, drill sergeant." She yelled, standing straight. "Good," he snapped. "Then act like it." The first day was chaos. Paperwork, uniforms, and shouted orders. By nightfall, Emily's feet ached, her head throbbed, and her muscles screamed. The barracks were loud, laughter echoing from the bunks. As she sat on her bed, polishing her new boots, a group of male recruits nearby whispered and snickered. "She's probably here for the experience," one said mockingly. "Bet she cries before morning," another added. Emily's hands tightened around the cloth, but she didn't look up. That night, as lights went out, she lay staring at the ceiling. Exhaustion pressed against her, but her mind refused to rest. She thought of every face that had doubted her, every smirk, every laugh. A quiet rage began to grow inside, not the kind that burned wildly, but the kind that smoldered, patient and steady. She whispered into the darkness, "You'll see. All of you." The next morning began at 4 a.m. sharp. Whistles, shouting, boots stomping. Recruits scrambled out of bed and onto the field. The air was thick with the smell of sweat and dew. Push-ups, sit-ups, runs, drills, the day felt endless. Emily's muscles trembled, her body not yet used to the demands. She came in last in every run, struggled to lift her own weight on the rope, and fell flat during the first climbing drill. Each time she failed, someone snickered. "Told you," she heard one mutter. By the end of the day, her uniform was soaked with sweat and streaked with dirt. Her arms felt like they were on fire. But when she looked up and caught a glimpse of Sergeant Reeves watching her, she straightened her back. He didn't say anything, just watched. That night, after lights out, she sat on her bunk, rubbing her sore arms. Her reflection stared back from the dark window, tired, bruised, but determined. For the first time, she realized this wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving herself right. Outside, the moonlight spilled across the training grounds, quiet and still. Inside, Emily Carter made a silent vow, the kind that would carry her through every pain and humiliation that came next. She would not quit. She would not bend. And one day, when the moment came, she would show them all exactly what courage looked like. The sun had barely risen over Fort Jackson, and the air was thick with the smell of freshly turned dirt and pine. Emily Carter stepped off the bus, her duffel bag heavier than her body seemed ready to carry. Around her, recruits of every shape and size poured onto the parade ground. Tall, muscular men with booming voices, others nervous and pale, some trying to mask fear with arrogance. Emily stood still, taking it all in, feeling both exhilaration and fear twist together inside her chest. Immediately, she noticed the stairs. Whispers darted through the ranks like invisible darts. "Look at her," one recruit muttered. "She doesn't even look like she lifts." Another laughed, loud and brash. "She'll cry before lunch, mark my words." Emily ignored them. She had trained herself to be silent in the face of judgment, to let her actions speak louder than words. But beneath her calm exterior, a fire burned, a mix of anger and determination, ready to turn every doubt into fuel. A sharp whistle cut through the morning air, making the recruits jump. Sergeant Reeves, a tall, imposing figure with a buzz cut and mirrored sunglasses, appeared seemingly from nowhere. His voice rang out like a thunderclap. "Attention!" The group snapped to attention, Emily included, her back straight, shoulders squared, jaw tight. She noticed Sergeant Reeves' eyes linger on her for a fraction longer than on anyone else. He didn't smile, didn't nod, just observed, calculating. "You think this is a game?" He barked, striding down the line. "You think this is some summer camp for the faint of heart? Every man, every woman here will learn quickly that weakness will not be tolerated. Not for a second. Not for a fraction of a second. Got it? Yes, drill sergeant." The recruits shouted, voices blending into a chaotic echo across the base. Emily repeated the words with precise cadence, though her throat felt dry and raw. She could feel the eyes of the other recruits on her. Their smirks, their whispered bets, whether she would survive her first week, pressed down on her like a physical weight. The day began immediately with physical conditioning. Push-ups, sit-ups, running drills, the kind that left muscles burning and lungs screaming. Emily's arms shook with every push-up. Her legs protested with every sprint. She was exhausted almost immediately, and the other recruits noticed. "She's too slow," one muttered under his breath. "She'll never keep up," said another, laughing. Emily clenched her teeth and ignored them. She reminded herself that speed, strength, and endurance weren't built overnight. They were forged slowly, painfully, with relentless persistence. Her father's words echoed in her mind. Courage is what you do when fear tells you to stop. By mid-morning, the recruits were herded to the obstacle course. Wooden walls, muddy trenches, and ropes awaited them. Emily's heart sank. Her hands ached just thinking about climbing, and she knew the other recruits would notice her hesitation. Carter front and center. Sergeant Reeves barked. Emily stepped forward. "You will lead your line during this drill." Shock ran through her. She hadn't expected to lead anyone, least of all those who doubted her existence here. She noticed the collective eye rolls and whispers, but she ignored them. She tightened her jaw and marched forward with precision. The whistle blew. The recruits sprinted toward the first obstacle, a tall wooden wall. Men leaped, grabbed ropes, and hoisted themselves over effortlessly. Emily ran forward, jumped, and barely caught the rope. She pulled herself up, muscles screaming, fingers raw. Halfway over, she slipped and nearly fell. One of the male recruits shouted, "Careful, fragile." Emily's face flushed with anger. She bit back the words that wanted to escape. Instead, she dug deep, lifted herself, and pushed past the burn in her arms. She landed on the other side of the wall, mud covering her uniform and scraping her elbows. By the time she reached the rope swing over a muddy trench, exhaustion began to threaten her focus. One by one, the recruits swung across easily, some laughing, some shouting encouragement to each other. Emily hesitated, her palms slick with sweat. A whisper floated behind her. "Bet she won't make it." Her mind sharpened. This wasn't about them. This wasn't about proving a point. This was about her own determination. With a deep breath, she gripped the rope, swung, and propelled herself forward. Her body screamed with pain, but she landed in the mud with a splash, coughing and laughing softly at herself. Hours passed like this, Push-ups, rope climbs, runs, mud crawls. Every obstacle tested her endurance and resolve. She fell, she stumbled, she failed. But she got back up. Every time she fell, the other recruits laughed. Every time she struggled, they whispered bets about her failure. And every time Emily reminded herself, this is not about them. By midday, her uniform was soaked, her hair plastered to her forehead, and her arms and legs bruised. But something inside her had shifted. The fire in her chest, quiet but persistent, had begun to grow. For the first time, she felt not just determination, but strength and defiance. During lunch, the recruits crowded around, talking loudly, comparing injuries and boasts. Emily sat quietly, eating her ration, listening. "Did you see Carter this morning?" One whispered. "She almost fell off the rope." Another snickered. "Bet she cries tonight." Emily didn't respond. She finished her meal and walked to the training field, alone. That afternoon, the platoon practiced combat drills, simulated attacks, obstacle navigation, hand-to-hand combat. Emily's body ached with exhaustion, but she focused on every move, every step, every instruction. She fell several times during hand-to-hand drills, and each fall drew laughter. But she rose. She kept rising again and again, until her body burned, her lungs screamed, and her mind threatened to give out. By the time the final whistle blew, signaling the end of the first day, Emily was battered and bruised. Every muscle ached. She was last in nearly every activity. And yet, she felt a strange sense of pride, a quiet victory she didn't yet understand. Later, in the barracks, as lights dimmed and the recruits fell asleep, Emily sat on her bunk. She examined her hands, red and raw from rope burns, and flexed her arms, sore but alive. The whispers, the laughter, the doubts of others, they no longer held power over her. She realized something profound. The challenge wasn't just the obstacles or the recruits mocking her. The real challenge was her own limits, her own fears. A soft knock came at the door. Sergeant Reeves stood there, arms crossed, watching her quietly. Emily straightened instinctively. "You did fine today," he said, voice calm but firm. "Better than most of them." Emily blinked in surprise. "Thank you, Drill Sergeant." Reeves' eyes studied her. "Don't thank me. Just don't quit. That's all I care about. You want to make it here? You keep moving. No excuses. No complaints. No crying." "I won't," Emily said. And she meant it. As he left, she sat back down on the bunk, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow would be harder. The day after that, even more so. But for the first time since arriving, Emily Carter felt not intimidated, but ready. The doubts of her peers, the whispers, the smirks, they had fueled something deeper inside her. A quiet rage, steady and deliberate, was now her ally. She would not allow anyone to define her strength. She would not allow herself to be defeated by fear or ridicule. And as she drifted into a restless sleep, the distant sound of boots and shouting filling the night, Emily whispered to herself, eyes closed and jaw firm, "Tomorrow, I begin for real." She did not yet know how far this journey would push her. She did not yet know the trials, the humiliation, or the pain that awaited. But one thing was certain. Emily Carter had arrived at Fort Jackson not to survive, but to prove herself capable of anything. And the storm, both inside and outside, had only just begun. The morning sun rose over Fort Jackson, bright and unforgiving, casting long shadows across the parade ground. Emily Carter awoke to the shrill whistle that had become the heartbeat of boot camp. Her muscles ached from the previous day, every joint and sinew reminding her that she had stepped into a world far harsher than Maple Creek. And yet, as she swung her legs over the side of the bunk, A fierce determination pulsed through her veins. Today, she would endure. Breakfast was brief and cold, eggs, grits, and coffee, eaten silently, while the other recruits chattered. Some boasted of their physical prowess, flexing arms or joking about how easily they would conquer the day. Others whispered predictions of Emily's failure. "Watch her fall today," one recruit muttered. "She doesn't have the stamina for this." Emily didn't respond. She had long learned that words were powerless unless backed by action. She took a deep breath, swallowed her breakfast, and prepared herself for the day's first challenge, the timed 2-mile run. The drill sergeant's command was sharp, cutting through the morning air. "On your marks." Emily lined up with the others, her shoes digging into the dirt. Her legs were sore, her lungs heavy, but she reminded herself that this wasn't a sprint of speed. It was a race of endurance. The whistle blew. The recruits surged forward, bodies straining, feet pounding the earth. Emily fell behind almost immediately, her smaller frame struggling to keep pace with the men around her. She could hear the laughter and the snide comments from the ones near the front. "Look at her go, snail pace." Pain shot through her calves and lungs, her breath coming in sharp gasps. Every step felt heavier than the last. The whispers of doubt from her peers echoed in her mind, threatening to drown out her resolve. But she clenched her fists, tightened her jaw, and pushed forward, one foot in front of the other, one breath at a time. Halfway through the run, a surge of panic hit. Emily's lungs burned, her heart raced uncontrollably, and the voices of her classmates haunted her. "You'll quit. You can't do this." For a fleeting second, she considered giving in, lying down in the grass, letting the others pass. But then she pictured her father's eyes, his stern face and quiet pride, and something snapped inside her. Courage is what you do when fear tells you to stop. She refused to stop. By the end of the 2-mile run, Emily crossed the finish line last, her chest heaving, sweat mixing with dirt on her face. The other recruits snickered, some openly mocking her. One male recruit even shouted, "See? Told you she wouldn't make it." Emily didn't flinch. She merely wiped the sweat from her eyes, took a deep breath, and prepared for the next drill, push-ups and sit-ups in the scorching sun. The hours that followed were brutal. She fell behind in almost every task, struggled with the rope climb, fumbled during obstacle maneuvers, and lagged in formation drills. The mocking of her peers was constant. "She can't even lift her own weight," a recruit whispered. "How is she going to survive this place?" But Emily had begun to notice something. With every failure, she learned. With every fall, she understood her limits better. By evening, though exhausted, she had developed a rhythm, a quiet strength that no one could see, hidden beneath her mud-streaked uniform and bloody hands. In the barracks that night, the recruits laughed and shared stories of their day, boasting of their accomplishments. Emily sat quietly on her bunk, staring at her reflection in the cracked mirror. Her arms were sore, bruised, and blistered. Her knees were scraped from countless falls. Her uniform was filthy, yet her eyes burned with a quiet determination that she hadn't felt before. She removed her boots and rubbed her hands. The rope burns were deep, the blisters forming. Pain gnawed at her, but it did not break her. In the quiet darkness of the barracks, she whispered to herself, "They're wrong. I can do this. I will do this." That night, she slipped out quietly to the training field. The other recruits were asleep. The base was silent, except for the distant hum of the night guards and the whisper of the wind through the trees. Emily took a deep breath and began running laps under the moonlight. Her legs ached, her lungs burned, but she forced herself onward, each stride a small victory over the exhaustion that threatened to consume her. After laps, she moved to push-ups and sit-ups, counting each repetition aloud, her voice echoing in the night. Her arms shook, her core screamed, but she didn't stop. Sweat poured down her face, soaking her uniform further. Mud clung to her shoes and knees. Yet with every push, every pull, every step, she felt stronger, sharper, more alive. As she paused to catch her breath, she noticed a figure in the shadows, Sergeant Reeves. He had been watching silently, arms crossed, eyes hidden behind mirrored sunglasses. Emily froze, unsure if she had been caught breaking protocol. "Keep going," he said finally, his voice calm but carrying authority. "Good, no excuses. You're learning faster than most because you care enough to try when no one is watching." Emily's heart pounded. She didn't respond. She simply nodded and resumed her training. That night, alone under the moonlight, she realized that this journey was never about impressing others. It was about discovering what she was capable of. The following days continued in a relentless rhythm. Each morning brought new drills, new challenges, new moments of failure. Every obstacle seemed designed to break her spirit. She fell during rope climbs, stumbled during runs, and struggled to lift her body during obstacle maneuvers. Yet each time she rose again, pushed forward, and endured. The whispers and snickers never stopped. The same male recruits mocked her constantly, testing her patience and resolve. "Fragile," they called her. "Last again. Bet she quits by next week." Emily didn't argue. She didn't retaliate. She let their words fuel her determination silently. Every repetition of push-ups, every lap around the field, every muddy crawl under barbed wire became her answer to their doubt. She began to understand that strength wasn't measured by speed or size alone. It was measured by persistence, resilience, and the refusal to give in. One evening, during a grueling obstacle course practice, Emily stumbled and fell into the mud. Laughter erupted around her. She could feel the sting of humiliation, hot and sharp. Yet she didn't cry. She didn't complain. She slowly pulled herself up, mud weighing down her body, muscles screaming in protest, and continued. Every recruit had stopped and looked at her with disbelief. The whispers grew. Why won't she give up? That question, asked silently by her peers, became the mantra that carried her forward. Emily realized that the obstacle wasn't the course, the instructors, or even the other recruits. It was herself, her limits, her doubts, her fears. And she was determined to conquer them. By the end of the week, Emily's body had been pushed to the brink. Every muscle ached, her uniform was shredded in places, and blisters covered her hands and feet. Yet for the first time, she felt a quiet pride, a sense of achievement that went beyond physical capability. She had endured, not perfectly, not gracefully, but with tenacity. In the barracks, she removed her boots and rubbed her hands, tracing the rope burns that would become badges of honor. She lay on her bunk, staring at the ceiling, reflecting on the week. The laughter, the ridicule, the whispered doubts, they no longer held power over her. What mattered was her own determination, the fire she had discovered within herself. And as she drifted into a fitful sleep, Emily Carter realized something profound. This was only the beginning. The true trials were yet to come. The moments of despair, humiliation, and doubt would continue. But she had discovered something unshakable, a quiet, relentless strength that no obstacle, no mocking voice, and no physical challenge could ever take from her. Tomorrow, the struggle would continue. The other recruits would doubt her, the obstacles would push her to her limits, and the pain would threaten to break her. But Emily Carter would rise again. And each time, she would rise stronger. For the first time, she understood the truth her father had tried to teach her. Courage isn't loud. It isn't flashy. It's quiet, persistent, and unwavering, even when no one is watching. And Emily Carter was just beginning to watch herself. The barracks were silent. The moon hung low over Fort Jackson, casting silver shadows across the training grounds. Inside, the other recruits slept, exhausted from the day's relentless drills. Emily Carter lay on her bunk, muscles aching, body battered, and every joint screaming from the day's obstacles. Yet her mind refused rest. The words of her peers, the whispers, the laughter, they echoed relentlessly. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice whispered back, "I will not quit. I will not fail." She slipped quietly from her bunk, careful not to disturb anyone. The barracks were dark and oppressive, a sea of sleeping bodies that somehow made her own energy feel sharper. She wrapped her hands, tied her boots tighter, and stepped out into the cool night. The base was eerily still, the only sounds the distant hum of the guards and the rustle of leaves in the wind. Tonight, Emily was alone, but she didn't care. She had discovered something in the past days. That strength wasn't given, it was earned. And the world she now inhabited demanded earnest effort, not excuses. She jogged toward the obstacle field, moonlight illuminating the mud-streaked course that had humiliated her earlier in the week. Rope climbs, walls, trenches, balance beams, all stood silent, waiting for the next day, for the next challenge. But tonight, Emily would face them on her own terms. The first exercise she attempted was the rope climb. During the day, her fingers had slipped, palms bleeding from friction, her body struggling to lift itself. Tonight, she focused on form. She visualized each movement, anchored her feet against the rope, and pulled with deliberate strength. Sweat poured down her face, and her muscles screamed. But she reached the top, grasping the top bar and holding herself there for a moment longer than necessary. Victory wasn't in the speed, but in the control, the precision, the proof that she could do it. Next came the mud crawl. She dropped to her hands and knees, the cold, damp earth clinging to her uniform, soaking through her sleeves and pants. Each crawl across the field was a battle. Her body protested, every joint whining, every bruise screaming, but she forced herself onward. She counted her movements meticulously, feeling the rhythm of her own determination. She didn't need an audience. The reward was hers alone. After the crawl, she moved to push-ups and sit-ups, counting each repetition aloud. Her voice echoed across the empty field, joining the rhythm of her heartbeat and labored breathing. Her arms shook violently, her core burned, but she refused to stop. Every repetition was an act of defiance, against fatigue, against ridicule, against the creeping doubt in her own mind. Hours passed, yet Emily did not relent. She ran laps around the field, timing herself, pushing her endurance beyond what she had thought possible during the day. Each stride built confidence. Each lap silenced the whispers of her peers that still haunted her mind. By the end of her secret training session, she collapsed in the soft mud, breathing hard, soaked in sweat and dirt, every muscle trembling from exertion. And yet, she felt exhilaration, a sense of empowerment that the daytime drills could never have offered. A shadow moved in the moonlight. Emily lifted her head. Sergeant Reeves stood silently, a few yards away, observing her. His presence was unnerving, but she didn't stop. He had seen many recruits attempt late-night training, most quitting within minutes. Yet here she was, relentless, unwavering. Finally, he spoke. "You have determination," he said quietly, voice firm but not harsh. "Not many possess that when no one is watching. Most quit before they even reach this point. You keep moving, Carter. That's why you'll survive here." Emily nodded, refusing to speak. Words weren't necessary. Every grunt, every strained breath, every drop of sweat testified to her resolve. The days that followed became a rhythm of dual lives. By day, she struggled alongside her peers, often last, often mocked. But by night, she transformed. She trained in silence, in darkness, pushing her body beyond limits, perfecting her technique, learning her own strengths, and more importantly, learning her own willpower. It wasn't easy. Her body screamed. Muscles tore and bruised. Every night, sleep was brief, punctuated by fatigue, soreness, and relentless self-discipline. And yet, Emily noticed small victories. A rope climb was slightly faster. A trench crawl required less effort. She lifted her own body weight with more confidence. She felt her endurance grow, inch by inch, day by day. Even as her body improved, the mental battles were relentless. She recalled the laughter, the whispered doubts, the smirks of the male recruits. Some nights, the hurt returned, threatening to overwhelm her. Why do I do this? She asked herself quietly during the hardest stretches. Why risk pain, humiliation, and exhaustion? And then the answer came, simple, unshakable. Because I can. Because I refuse to let others define me. Because quitting is not an option. One particularly grueling night, Emily attempted the obstacle course in its entirety. She climbed walls, swung across ropes, crawled under barbed wire, balanced on beams, and ran laps, over and over. Each movement was calculated, deliberate. Her body ached, lungs burned, and yet a strange serenity filled her. She realized she was no longer training merely to survive. She was training to master herself, to be stronger than her doubts, stronger than her peers, stronger than fear itself. By the time dawn approached, painting the horizon with streaks of orange and pink, Emily had completed an entire night of personal trials. She returned to the barracks silently, exhausted but alive in a way that was almost transcendent. She showered quickly, brushed her teeth, and climbed into her bunk just as the first morning whistle began to echo across the base. Her body protested immediately. Every muscle screamed, her joints ached, but she felt something extraordinary. She was no longer the same recruit who had arrived in Maple Creek only days before. The whispers of doubt had lost their power. Her failures had not defeated her. They had strengthened her. The humiliation that had once seemed unbearable now fueled her resolve. When Sergeant Reeves observed the morning drills, he noticed the subtle difference. Emily's movements were sharper. Her endurance was improving. Her confidence, once tentative, now glimmered through her eyes. She was still behind some of the male recruits, yes, but her perseverance was unmistakable. She was beginning to earn a new kind of respect, not from her peers yet, but from herself. And slowly, that was enough. Each night of secret training became sacred, a ritual of self-discovery. Emily realized that no one could give her strength. She had to claim it herself. Pain, exhaustion, ridicule, these were no longer enemies. They were teachers, guiding her, shaping her, transforming her from a quiet, underestimated girl into a determined, unyielding soldier. By the end of her second week, Emily's body and mind had changed significantly. Her hands had thickened with calluses, her grip stronger. Her legs were more muscular, capable of sprinting longer distances. Her arms could hoist her over obstacles with less effort, and her core had strengthened to endure long hours of crawling and lifting. But perhaps most importantly, she had grown mentally unbreakable. The male recruits, who had once whispered and laughed, began noticing. Some paused mid-joke to glance at her, surprised by the quiet intensity she now carried. Whispers changed from mockery to curiosity. "She's improving faster than I expected," one admitted quietly. "She's relentless." Emily didn't seek their recognition. She didn't crave their approval. All that mattered was her own progress, her own mastery of the obstacles, her own growing belief in herself. And deep down, she knew that all this preparation, all these hours of night training, all the pain endured, All the solitude was not just for the drills. It was for a singular defining moment that would come soon, the obstacle course. The challenge that would either break her or cement her strength. Emily Carter, once mocked and underestimated, now moved with quiet purpose. Every bruise, every blister, every ache was a testament to her relentless perseverance. She had learned to embrace pain, to welcome struggle, and to trust in her own ability to overcome. She had become unstoppable, not because she was the strongest recruit on the field, but because she had earned a strength that no one could take away. And she knew, deep in her heart, that when the time came, she would face the ultimate obstacle alone, and she would prevail. The morning air at Fort Jackson was crisp, carrying the scent of dirt, pine, and exhaustion. Emily Carter stood among her platoon, her boots caked with dried mud, her uniform wrinkled and stained from another grueling week. The sun had barely risen, yet the field was already alive with energy, shouts, whistle blasts, and the steady cadence of marching feet. Today was different. Today, Sergeant Reeves had gathered the platoon with an intensity Emily had never seen before. The air vibrated with anticipation and anxiety. "Listen up," Reeves barked, his voice cutting across the parade ground. "Today, you face the final obstacle course. This is not just a test of your physical ability. It's a test of your endurance, your determination, and your courage. Complete it or fail your training." "Got it?" "Yes, Drill Sergeant." The recruits shouted in unison. Emily's stomach tightened. She had trained for this moment in secret every night, yet the knowledge that the others would be watching, judging, laughing, doubting, weighed heavily on her. The whispers had begun before Reeves even finished speaking. "Bet Carter won't even make it halfway," a recruit muttered, loud enough for a few others to hear. "She's going to cry in the mud, guaranteed," another chimed in, laughter in his voice. "Do you think she even knows how to climb a rope properly?" Someone else added. Emily swallowed hard, the sting of their mockery sinking into her chest. She had grown stronger, faster, and more resilient over the past weeks, yet their words still carried the power to wound, if she let them. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "This is not about them. This is about me. Nothing else matters." She reminded herself of the nights spent alone in the moonlight, training until her body screamed and her mind wavered. Those nights were proof that she was capable of far more than anyone could imagine. Sergeant Reeves observed the recruits quietly, his sharp eyes scanning the line. When he reached Emily, he stopped, pausing for a moment longer than necessary. She met his gaze, steady and unflinching, silently signaling that she was ready. "Platoon, fall in for final instructions," Reeves commanded. He outlined the obstacles: high walls, rope climbs, mud trenches, balance beams, and swinging ropes over water-filled ditches. Every element designed to test strength, agility, and endurance. Each challenge would push the recruits to their limits. The male recruits snickered again as Emily listened. "This is going to be hilarious," one said under his breath. "I can already picture her face in the mud." Emily ignored them. She knew the only way to silence their doubts wasn't through words or arguments. It was through action. When the whistle blew, the recruits surged forward. Emily pushed herself to the front line, moving with controlled energy, ignoring the stares and laughter of her peers. She was slower than some, yes, but deliberate, focused, and determined. Each step, each movement was measured, a testament to the hours she had spent training alone. The first obstacle was a towering wooden wall. Men leaped, grabbed ropes, and hoisted themselves effortlessly. Emily ran forward, her legs trembling, her fingers slick with sweat. She grabbed the rope, climbed with all her strength, slipped slightly, but corrected herself and pulled her body over the top. She landed hard on the other side, mud splattering her uniform, but she didn't stumble. A voice from behind shouted, "Careful, Carter! Don't fall." Emily didn't respond. She didn't need to. Her actions were her answer. Next came the mud trench, long and narrow, forcing recruits to crawl on hands and knees through a cold, sticky mixture. Emily hit the mud, her body sinking slightly with each movement. Pain shot through her wrists and elbows, but she forced herself onward. Each inch forward was an act of defiance, every grunt a declaration of determination. Halfway through, the recruits around her shouted and laughed, mocking her efforts. "Bet you're already tired, Carter," one sneered. "Give up. You can't do this." Another jeered. Emily's face burned with effort and frustration, but she refused to look up. She pushed harder, drawing on every ounce of endurance she had built over weeks of early mornings, grueling days, and secret nights. "I will finish this, no matter what." The rope swings came next, stretching over a water-filled ditch. Some of the men leapt with confidence. Others missed, landing in the cold water with splashes that elicited laughter. Emily approached the ropes carefully. Her hands gripped, her legs swung, and with a single leap, she caught the first rope, swinging across. Her body strained, muscles screaming, but she reached the other side, wet and exhausted, yet triumphant. By now, most of the other recruits had finished the course, some applauding, some laughing, some pretending to ignore her progress. Emily looked ahead. The final wall loomed before her, taller than she had imagined, mud clinging to its surface. Her arms and legs burned from the effort, her lungs screamed for oxygen, and sweat and mud coated every inch of her body. A wave of doubt tried to creep in. She could stop. She could collapse and join the others in mockery. But she shook her head violently. No, not now. Not ever. She grabbed the rope, her hands raw and bleeding from earlier obstacles. Inch by inch, she climbed, every movement a battle against pain and fatigue. Halfway up, she slipped, her fingers losing grip for a moment. The wall seemed insurmountable. Her muscles quivered. But Emily gritted her teeth, dug in, and pulled herself higher, summoning every ounce of strength left in her body. Minutes passed like hours. The world narrowed to the rope, the wall, and her will. Finally, she reached the top, hoisting herself over with a grunt of exertion. She landed on the other side, chest heaving, eyes burning with determination and triumph. The other recruits were watching now, silent, unable to mock her. Their laughter had died. Sergeant Reeves approached, his boots crunching on the dirt. Emily stood, trembling, soaked in mud and sweat, yet unwavering. "Carter," he said quietly, voice carrying authority. "That's the definition of a soldier." For a moment, the platoon was silent, shocked by her persistence and success. Then, slowly, some of the recruits began to clap, their respect begrudging but genuine. Emily didn't smile or respond. She simply stood, head held high, acknowledging the victory that was hers alone. The rest of the course was completed with meticulous determination. Emily moved through each obstacle with care, precision, and quiet strength. Every mud crawl, rope swing, and wall climb was a testament to her dedication, her resilience, and her refusal to allow anyone's doubts to define her. By the time she crossed the final line, she was alone, exhausted, and covered in mud, sweat, and bruises. But she was victorious, not in the sense of finishing first, but in proving, beyond any doubt, that her strength, her courage, and her determination were hers alone. The recruits who had mocked her earlier now looked at her with newfound respect. Whispers of admiration began to ripple through the group, mingling with awe and disbelief. "I didn't think she could do it," one admitted quietly. "She's unstoppable." Emily didn't need their approval. She had already claimed something far more valuable, a sense of self that no ridicule could shake, no obstacle could break. She had endured, she had fought, and she had risen alone against every expectation, against every doubt, and against herself. As Sergeant Reeves saluted her, the message was clear. Courage was not about being the fastest or strongest. It was about persistence, resilience, and the refusal to quit. Emily Carter had embodied every one of those qualities, and in doing so, she had transformed herself from the recruit everyone mocked into a soldier everyone respected. That night, as Emily returned to the barracks, every bruise, scrape, and blister a testament to her effort. She realized that this challenge had not only tested her physical strength, but had also shaped her mind and spirit. She had discovered the profound truth her father had always tried to teach her. True courage is quiet, steadfast, and unwavering, even when no one is watching. And for Emily Carter, the greatest challenge had not been the obstacles themselves, but the journey within, a journey she had conquered one step at a time, in the silence of determination and the fire of self-belief. The sun had barely peeked over the horizon, casting long shadows across the training grounds of Fort Jackson. The air was heavy with humidity, and the earth, damp from early morning dew, clung to Emily Carter's boots. She stood at the edge of the obstacle course, alone. The usual chatter of her platoon was absent. This was her moment, unobserved by friends or enemies, facing not only the course, but the culmination of every doubt, every whisper, every mocking laugh she had endured. The memory of their words burned fresh in her mind. She won't make it. She's too weak. She quit before lunch. Emily clenched her fists, mud caked under her fingernails. Not today. Not me. She began with the rope climb, her palms raw from weeks of training. The rope seemed taller than ever, the knots slippery, yet she anchored her feet, pulled with deliberate precision, and rose hand over hand. Halfway up, her arms quivered violently. Her breath came in ragged gasps. She considered slipping, considered letting gravity take over. But then she thought of her father's medals, hanging silently in her home, a testament to courage. Her fingers tightened. She would reach the top. With a final heave, she hoisted herself over the rope, landing hard on the platform. Mud sprayed her uniform, sweat ran into her eyes, but she stood tall, chest heaving, refusing to look back. Next came the high walls. They loomed like giants, taunting her. Emily had struggled with them before, her smaller frame a disadvantage against the brute force of gravity. But now she remembered her nights training alone, pulling herself repeatedly until her muscles burned, until failure became a teacher rather than an enemy. She sprinted toward the first wall, planting her feet against the base, gripping the top ledge with hands slick from mud and sweat. Every inch upward was a battle. Her calves screamed, her arms shook, and for a moment it seemed impossible. But determination surged through her veins. Inch by inch she climbed, muscles screaming, body trembling. At the top, she paused briefly, drawing a deep breath. The world seemed to hold its breath with her. And then she dropped to the ground beyond the wall, landing on shaky legs but unbroken spirit. The mud crawl was next. She dropped to her hands and knees, the cold, sticky earth sucking at her uniform and skin. Each movement was a struggle against exhaustion and friction. Her elbows scraped, knees burned, and her clothes clung uncomfortably to her soaked body. Yet she crawled forward relentlessly, drawing on the countless nights she had trained under the moon, every inch a testament to grit. A moment came when her fingers slipped in the mud, and she felt herself falter. Instinctively, she whispered, "You will finish." Her fingers found purchase. Her body surged forward, and she pressed on. Pain was present. Yes, but it was now a familiar companion, one that pushed her to test her limits rather than retreat from them. The balance beam stretched before her, like thin lines over a pool of muddy water. Every step demanded focus, every movement required stability. She had stumbled on them before, but the solitary training had sharpened her mind and body alike. One foot in front of the other, arms extended for balance, Emily moved deliberately, feeling her confidence grow with every careful step. She completed the beam with a sense of mastery she had not felt before, the triumph silent but profound. Rope swings awaited her over the water ditch, a test of upper body strength and precision. Emily gripped the first rope, swung forward, then backward, timing her momentum. Her palms burned. Her shoulders trembled. With careful calculation, she leapt to the next rope, her body straining against gravity. Water splashed below her, cold and unrelenting, but she continued, each swing a precise blend of strength, control, and focus. Halfway through, fatigue hit like a hammer. Her lungs burned, her muscles protested, and her body begged for rest. But Emily refused. Not yet. Not ever. She leaned on every lesson, every repetition, every failure turned into a step forward. Her mind pushed her body beyond the edge of exhaustion, reminding her that the hardest battles were fought internally, in moments when no one could see, when failure was a whisper at the edge of your ear. The final wall loomed ahead, taller and more intimidating than any she had faced. Mud and sweat covered her hands, bruises and scratches adorned her arms, yet her spirit had never felt stronger. She stepped back, assessing the challenge. For a moment, doubt attempted to creep in. You're too tired. You can't do it. Emily exhaled slowly, letting the moonlit memories of late-night training wash over her. She remembered the cold air biting at her face, the mud under her fingers, the ache of muscles she had pushed past countless times. She had fought against herself and emerged stronger. I am stronger than my fear. She ran toward the wall, planted her feet, and jumped. Her fingers gripped the top ledge, muscles screaming, heart pounding. Slowly, deliberately, she pulled herself upward. Her arms quivered, her body shook, yet she refused to falter. Inch by inch, she climbed. Every thought, every memory of ridicule and doubt was transformed into fuel. Every scar, every blister, every bruise she had endured whispered, "Keep going." With one final heave, she hoisted herself over the wall. Landing hard, she fell to her knees, mud and sweat soaking her uniform. But she was triumphant. Alone, unassisted, unbroken, she had conquered the obstacle course. Silence fell for a moment. The world seemed to pause, acknowledging her accomplishment. Then, in the distance, the shouts of other recruits began to filter through. Some watched in astonishment, realizing that Emily, the recruit mocked and underestimated, had completed the course alone. Some whispered, unable to contain their awe. Sergeant Reeves approached, his boots crunching on the dirt. His mirrored sunglasses reflected the morning light, but his expression was unreadable. Emily, exhausted beyond comprehension, stood tall, refusing to collapse despite her trembling legs. "Carter," Reeves said finally, his voice steady, commanding attention. "You have done what most would never attempt. You have faced every obstacle, every doubt, and every limitation, and you have overcome them. That is courage. That is strength. That is what it means to be a soldier." Emily exhaled, her chest heaving, tears mingling with mud and sweat on her face. She didn't smile, didn't celebrate with her classmates. This victory was hers alone. Every whisper of doubt, every mocking laugh, every painful bruise and blister had culminated in this moment. She had proven to herself, above all else, that she was capable of far more than anyone could have imagined. The other recruits, once mocking, now stood in stunned silence. Respect replaced ridicule in their eyes. Some nodded slowly, acknowledging the perseverance, the strength, and the courage Emily had displayed. For Emily, it wasn't about recognition. It wasn't about applause or approval. It was about the truth she had discovered within herself. That strength was forged in the fires of adversity, and courage was quiet, steady, and unwavering. As she stood on the muddy field, surveying the obstacles she had conquered alone, Emily felt a profound sense of accomplishment. She had entered Fort Jackson underestimated, doubted, and mocked. And she had emerged transformed, stronger, wiser, and unshakable. Sergeant Reeves stepped closer, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. "Well done, Carter. Today, you've set an example for everyone here. Remember this feeling. Carry it forward. The obstacles in life will always exist, but the strength to overcome them resides within you." Emily nodded, breathless, exhausted, yet filled with quiet pride. She didn't need more. She had faced the ultimate challenge, alone, unassisted, and unbroken, and she had succeeded. The sun rose higher, illuminating the muddy field, casting a golden glow on Emily's uniform, streaked with sweat, mud, and bruises. The course she had once feared now seemed smaller, conquered not by speed or brute strength, but by endurance, determination, and relentless courage. And in that moment, Emily Carter understood something profound. The greatest obstacles are not the walls, the ropes, or the trenches. The greatest obstacles are the doubts, fears, and limitations that exist within. And when you conquer those, nothing in the world can stop you. Alone on the field, she had not just completed the course, she had transcended it, proving not only to her peers, but to herself that courage is quiet, perseverance is relentless, and true strength is forged in the face of adversity. The sun blazed high over Fort Jackson, turning the training grounds into a furnace of determination and grit. The morning's whistle had signaled another day of drills, but the energy in the platoon had shifted. The recruits who had once mocked Emily Carter now looked at her differently. Whispers of doubt had been replaced with glances of curiosity, cautious admiration, and even respect. Emily herself moved quietly through the line, mud-streaked uniform and weary body giving little hint of the inner triumph she had earned the day before. Sergeant Reeves appeared on the parade ground, his mirrored sunglasses glinting in the sun. He did not speak at first, simply observing the platoon as they lined up for the morning roll call. His gaze lingered on Emily for a moment longer than the others, noting the calm determination in her stance. "Platoon," he barked, his voice commanding attention. "Yesterday, one of you set an example of courage, perseverance, and determination that must not go unnoticed." The recruits shifted uncomfortably. Sensing that the drill sergeant was speaking about Emily, the whispers began again, this time tinged with uncertainty. "Is he talking about Carter?" One muttered, "No way, she did it alone?" Reeves' voice cut through the speculation. "Carter completed the obstacle course alone, every wall, rope, trench, and beam, despite exhaustion, injuries, and doubt. She faced not only the physical challenges, but the mental ones as well. She proved to every recruit here that determination and courage are more important than size, speed, or prior experience." The platoon was silent now, absorbing the magnitude of Reeves' words. Some recruits exchanged looks, a mix of awe and embarrassment for their earlier mockery. Others simply stared at Emily, trying to reconcile the quiet, mud-covered girl they had doubted with the soldier standing before them. Emily's face remained composed. She did not boast, did not raise her voice, did not flaunt her victory. She had learned that strength was quiet, earned in the sweat of effort, and proven through action. She allowed the recognition to settle around her without needing to claim it herself. One by one, the platoon members stepped forward during the day, offering nods, quiet words of respect, and even apologies for the whispers and laughter that had once accompanied her struggles. "I didn't think you could do it," one recruit admitted, eyes downcast. "But you were incredible." Another added, "I've never seen anyone push themselves like that. You inspired me." Emily nodded in acknowledgement, a small, reserved smile forming. It wasn't about accolades. It wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about the journey she had undertaken, the fire she had kindled within herself, and the realization that her own determination could outlast mockery, fear, and pain. The recognition brought with it a new challenge: leadership. Reeves called the platoon to line up for team exercises, pairing recruits for combined drills. To Emily's surprise, she was paired with some of the male recruits who had once mocked her. Their initial reactions were stiff, awkward. Whispers and snickers had been replaced with curiosity and cautious respect. "Ready?" one of the recruits asked, a hint of hesitation in his voice. Emily simply nodded. "Let's get it done." During the drills, Emily's calm, deliberate approach became an asset. She guided her partner over obstacles, demonstrating techniques she had mastered in late-night training sessions. Her hands were steady, her instructions clear, and her perseverance contagious. Even the recruits who had doubted her found themselves following her lead, learning to move with patience and focus. By the afternoon, Emily had not only earned respect, but had become a source of inspiration. The other recruits began to emulate her technique, adopting her rhythm, endurance strategies, and methodical approach. Her quiet determination rippled through the platoon, reshaping the dynamics in ways she had never anticipated. During lunch, a small group of recruits approached her. "Hey, about earlier," one began awkwardly. I was wrong. You were amazing." "I mean it. I wish I had trained like you did." Emily's reply was simple. "Thank you. Keep working. It's worth it." No arrogance. No condescension. Just honesty and encouragement. The kind of leadership that grew naturally from someone who had faced fear and emerged stronger. Even Sergeant Reeves noticed. After the day's training, he called Emily aside. "You're more than just a survivor, Carter," he said. "You're becoming a leader. And leadership isn't about being the fastest or the strongest. It's about persistence, example, and the ability to lift others with your courage. You've done that here." Emily felt a rare surge of pride, not for herself alone, but for the realization that her struggle had made a difference. She had become a quiet force, an example that others could follow. The day continued with more grueling exercises. Partner drills, endurance runs, and strategic obstacle courses tested every recruit. But now, Emily moved not just for herself, but alongside others, guiding, encouraging, and demonstrating the results of relentless effort. The male recruits who had mocked her earlier were learning from her example, their attitudes slowly shifting from doubt to admiration. During a particularly difficult wall climb, a recruit struggled, unable to hoist himself over. Emily approached silently, extending a hand. "Grab my arm," she instructed calmly. "You can do it. Just trust yourself." With her support, he made it over the wall. His eyes widened, not just at the physical feat, but at the realization that Emily's strength was more than physical. It was strategic, patient, and inspiring. Word of Emily's accomplishments spread quickly throughout the training camp. By the end of the day, whispers of admiration replaced laughter. Some recruits began to see her as a benchmark, someone who had turned mockery and doubt into a quiet, unstoppable force. In the barracks that evening, Emily reflected on the transformation. The journey had not been easy. The ridicule, the doubts, the exhaustion, each had tested her resolve. Yet it was through these trials that she had discovered her own strength. She had faced every obstacle alone, and now others were beginning to understand the value of perseverance, courage, and relentless determination. As she prepared for sleep, she realized something profound. Leadership was not about commanding attention. It was about setting an example. It was about showing others that obstacles, whether physical, mental, or emotional, could be overcome through persistence, focus, and self-belief. Emily Carter, once underestimated, mocked, and doubted, had become a beacon of resilience. She had conquered the course alone, earned recognition, and inspired her peers. But the most significant victory was internal. The knowledge that she had transformed herself into someone unshakable, someone capable of facing any challenge with unwavering resolve. The moon rose high outside, casting silver light through the barracks windows. Emily lay on her bunk, exhausted yet triumphant, feeling the quiet satisfaction of a soldier who had earned her place not through luck or favoritism, but through sheer willpower and dedication. Tomorrow, she knew, would bring new challenges. But for the first time, she felt ready to face them, not as a recruit proving herself to others, but as a soldier who had proven herself to herself. And in the quiet darkness, a thought settled in her mind. This is only the beginning. Emily Carter had transformed mockery into motivation, ridicule into resolve, and doubt into determination. She had shown that courage is not always loud, recognition is not always immediate, and success is not always measured in first-place finishes. Sometimes the greatest victories are silent, earned in mud, sweat, and unwavering persistence. As sleep finally claimed her, Emily's heart was steady, her spirit strong, and her mind clear. She had faced the obstacles, endured the mockery, and emerged victorious. And tomorrow, she would continue to rise, setting an example for others, and proving that true strength comes not from what the world expects, but from what one is willing to endure and overcome. The dawn light spilled across Fort Jackson, painting the training grounds in golden hues. Birds chirped faintly in the background, but the air carried a palpable tension. Today marked the final evaluation, the ultimate test of endurance, skill, and character. The platoon lined up, a mixture of exhaustion, anxiety, and anticipation etched on every face. Emily Carter stood among them, mud-streaked, bruised, and raw from days of grueling effort, yet a quiet fire glimmered in her eyes. She had faced ridicule, doubt, and exhaustion. She had trained in secrecy, pushed past limits, and endured hardships that many of her peers couldn't imagine. Today, the culmination of all that effort would unfold before the eyes of her instructors and fellow recruits alike. Sergeant Reeves stepped forward, his voice echoing across the grounds. "Platoon! Today, each of you faces the final obstacle challenge. This course is the same you've trained on. Every wall, rope, trench, balance beam, and swing. But today, it is not only a test of physical ability, it is a test of courage, perseverance, and character. Those who complete it will earn the respect of the platoon and the knowledge that they are stronger than they ever believed." Emily's heart pounded. She had completed the course alone before, but today would be different. Her peers would watch. Their laughter and doubt had been replaced by curiosity, some tinged with admiration. Yet the course demanded more than just physical skill. It demanded mental endurance, focus, and the unwavering belief in oneself. The whistle blew, and the recruits surged forward. Emily moved deliberately, muscles screaming, lungs burning, yet her mind calm and steady. She approached the first obstacle, the rope climb, her palms raw and calloused from the nights spent training under the moon. Each movement was precise. She gripped, pulled, and hoisted herself upward, inch by inch, until she reached the top. Mud splattered her uniform, but she landed firmly, unshaken. Next came the walls. Some recruits leapt over easily, others struggled. Emily remembered the countless nights she had spent climbing, falling, and climbing again. She planted her feet, grasped the top ledge, and pulled herself over, muscles quivering, determination unwavering. She landed hard, breath ragged, but triumphant. The mud crawl stretched ahead, cold and sticky. Emily dropped to her hands and knees, moving with deliberate patience. Every scrape, every bruise, every blister became a symbol of her progress, a testament to her relentless perseverance. When she slipped briefly, she whispered, "Not yet. Keep going." Her fingers found purchase, and she crawled forward, undeterred. Balance beams demanded focus. Many recruits wavered, fell, or stumbled into the water below. Emily moved carefully, step by step, arms extended, body steady despite exhaustion. The rhythm she had mastered during nights alone carried her across the beams, her confidence unshakable. Rope swings over the water-filled ditch loomed next. Each leap required courage and precision. Emily gripped the ropes, swinging back and forth, timing her jumps perfectly. Water splashed around her as she moved from rope to rope, her body trembling, yet every swing a declaration of her determination. Finally, she faced the last wall, taller, more imposing than any before. Muscles burned, lungs screamed, and sweat and mud coated every inch of her body. Doubt tried to creep in for a fleeting moment. "You're too tired. You can't do it." Emily exhaled slowly. She remembered her father's words, the nights she trained alone, the countless moments of pain and perseverance. "I am stronger than my fear." She ran toward the wall, planted her feet, and leapt. Fingers gripped the top ledge. Inch by inch, she pulled herself upward. The world seemed to shrink to the wall, the rope, and her determination. Her body shook violently, every muscle protesting, but she refused to falter. Finally, she hoisted herself over the top, landing on the ground beyond with a grunt of effort. Mud, sweat, and blood streaked her uniform, but she was victorious. Silence fell briefly. The recruits and instructors watched in awe. Emily Carter, once mocked and underestimated, had completed the course again, alone, unassisted, and unbroken. Sergeant Reeves approached, his presence commanding respect. "Carter," he said, voice steady, "what you've done is more than physical accomplishment. You've faced doubt, ridicule, and exhaustion, and emerged stronger. You've proven that true strength is perseverance, courage, and unwavering determination." Emily stood, chest heaving, mud streaked across her face, yet a quiet pride filled her. She didn't seek applause or recognition. She didn't need validation from anyone. This victory was hers alone, earned through effort, pain, and relentless perseverance. The platoon erupted in applause, some hesitant, others enthusiastic. Whispers of admiration replaced the previous mockery. "She did it." "Again," one recruit murmured. "She's unstoppable." Another approached, eyes wide with newfound respect. "I've never seen anyone push themselves like that. You've changed the game for all of us." Emily simply nodded, allowing her actions to speak louder than words. Leadership, she had learned, was not about commanding attention, but about inspiring others through example. As the day continued, Emily found herself guiding her peers through the course, sharing tips she had learned during nights of solitary training. She demonstrated proper techniques for wall climbs, rope swings, and balance beams. The other recruits listened attentively, absorbing her knowledge, respect growing with every word and action. By afternoon, the atmosphere of the platoon had transformed. Emily had become more than just a participant. She was a symbol that courage, determination, and perseverance could overcome ridicule, doubt, and perceived limitations. Even the recruits who had mocked her began to train harder, inspired by her example. In the evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sergeant Reeves gathered the platoon. "Today, one recruit has shown all of us what it means to be a soldier," he said. "She has faced every challenge, endured every hardship, and emerged not just victorious, but stronger, wiser, and more determined. Let her courage inspire you all. Let her perseverance remind you that the greatest battles are not always fought with strength alone, but with heart and determination. Emily felt a quiet swell of pride. She had arrived at Fort Jackson, underestimated, mocked, and doubted. She had faced physical and mental challenges that threatened to break her. And yet, she had transformed herself. Every obstacle, every fall, every blister, every moment of fatigue had been a stepping stone toward this victory. Later, in the barracks, she reflected on her journey. The ridicule she had endured had become fuel. The doubts of others had been transformed into determination. The pain she had experienced had strengthened her body and her spirit. She realized that this journey was never solely about the obstacle course. It was about discovering the unyielding strength within herself. Emily Carter had become more than just a recruit who completed the course alone. She had become an inspiration, a quiet force whose determination had reshaped the attitudes, beliefs, and aspirations of those around her. Her peers now looked up to her not for her size, speed, or raw strength, but for her resilience, her courage, and her unwavering commitment to persevere. They had witnessed firsthand that true strength was not given. It was earned through effort, patience, and relentless self-belief. That night, as Emily lay on her bunk, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Every challenge, every mocking whisper, every drop of sweat and mud had led to this moment. She had faced the ultimate obstacle, not just the course itself, but the expectations and doubts of those around her, and emerged victorious. Her journey had shown her that courage is not loud, recognition is not immediate, and success is not measured solely by being first. Sometimes the greatest victories are silent, earned in solitude, and demonstrated through consistent perseverance. Emily knew that the lessons she had learned would stay with her forever. She had discovered the power of determination, the value of resilience, and the unshakable strength that comes from trusting oneself. She had turned mockery into motivation, fear into fuel, and doubt into triumph. In the days, weeks, and years to come, Emily Carter's story would inspire others. She had shown that strength is not measured by size, endurance, or prior experience, but by the courage to face challenges, the resilience to endure, and the relentless commitment to rise above doubt. As the moon rose over Fort Jackson, casting silver light across the barracks, Emily closed her eyes. Exhausted, bruised, and battered, she felt a sense of peace. She had faced every obstacle alone, proved herself against every doubt, and earned a place not just among her peers, but in her own understanding of what it meant to be strong. For Emily Carter, the journey had begun as a test of skill, endurance, and courage. It had ended as a testament to perseverance, resilience, and unwavering determination. And though she had conquered the obstacle course alone, she knew that the lessons she had learned would guide her forever, lighting the path for herself and for those who would one day follow in her footsteps. She had faced the mockery, the doubt, and the challenges, and emerged victorious. Emily Carter had proven, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that courage, determination, and perseverance are the true measures of strength, and that anyone willing to endure, to fight, and to rise can achieve greatness.